Hi everyone, I'm Taklai, and I thought I would share another story with you today. It's another story about Western Tigray from The Economist this time, and it's about the destruction of evidence by Amhara forces. This is not something that would come as a surprise to most of you, because most of you will know that the Amhara forces have been engaged in evidence tampering and destruction in Western Tigray, from burning burial sites to disposing of bodies to exhumation of bodies and throwing them into rivers. So nothing new, except to say that even now, even though we are supposed to believe that peace has prevailed in Tigray following the peace agreement, they are doing things to make sure that they avoid being held to account for the atrocious crimes that they have perpetrated against Tigrayans in Western Tigray. So war crimes in Tigray may be covered up or forgotten. That's the title. New satellite images suggest burial grounds are being burned. So this is introduction and stuff. I think the crux of the story is on the third paragraph here. More than 100 satellite images of known detention sites and suspected burial grounds in Western Tigray suggest that some evidence has already been disturbed or destroyed. The imagery, collected and analyzed by Vigil Monitor, a British-based conflict research group, shows disturbances at locations that eyewitnesses separately identified as body disposal sites. Near 3 prison camps, these disturbances, such as freshly scorched earth, became visible shortly after the peace deal was signed. So nothing novel in the approach. It was something that we know in terms of how the economists ascertained the claims in the reporting. They first heard from eyewitnesses about detention centers and about burial sites, and then they gave pointers to the satellite images analysis group, Vigil Monitor this time, and they could see from satellite imagery that those detention centers and burial grounds have changed since the peace deal, and they have changed in a specific way, which is that they could see some sort of scorch, some sort of burn, and they are alleging that what has probably happened is that the Amhara forces and assisted by the Eritrean forces have burnt the burial grounds. Now you might ask, why would they burn the burial grounds? I think the reason is because the Ethiopian regime and the Amhara forces are worried that they might be forced at some point to allow journalists or investigators to go to Western Tigray and do some sort of on-site investigation. And so far, they have succeeded in banning anyone from going to Western Tigray, but they suspect that they might not have success in the future. They might be forced, for instance, to allow journalists following the publication of the UN investigation report in September, for instance. So they are trying to make sure that by that time there is nothing suspicious. They are destroying everything, and they are making sure that they will be in a position to pretend that nothing has happened. I think we know the motivation, and the story goes on to detail into some aspects of the story about what kind of eyewitnesses they relied on, the specific places. So they go in detail about a detention center and burial ground around Amhara, for instance, in here. But the report there is a very disturbing story here. For instance, at times, say eyewitnesses and former detainees. So the former detainees are now in Sudan, and it's in Sudan that the economists have spoken to them. At times, say eyewitnesses and former detainees, bodies were left in the open to be eaten by animals. Just imagine how cruel this is. A Tigrayan man who spent more than a year and a half in prison in Amhara before escaping to Sudan says prison guards made him load the corpses of 16 fellow inmates onto tractors, which were then carted to places unknown. So this is the kind of stuff that the Amhara forces have been doing and making Tigrayans do. And I think some of you remember, I mean, here the economist says that the bodies were carted away to unknown places, but I think we know where the unknown places are. One of the unknown places is the Takaza River, because we know that they have been throwing bodies into the river because I think it was the CNN. Here you remember evidence of mass killing being burned. Again, it's not the first time that we have heard evidence of burning of burial grounds, but here we read that bodies were disposed of in the Takaza River. And I think it was a couple of, I don't know how many bodies were extracted in Sudan. But all this to say that it's not the first time that this has been happening. The only sort of difference now is that this is happening after the peace deal, when everyone is pretending that everything is fine now in Tigray, that peace has returned and all that. But of course they are doing their job behind the veil of peace. And so this is evidence of, this is an older report about burning of bare grounds, and also we know this report of men are marched out of prison camps, then corpses float down the river. So here in The Economist, they say that men were loaded, well, not just men, were actually bodies were loaded onto trucks and taken to unknown places. But the unknown places, one of the unknown places, for instance, is the river. We know from CNN reporting. And when was this? This was in September 10, 2021. So men are marched out of prison camps, then corpses float down the river. So that's the Economist report then goes on to say the implication of this and how even the TPLF, actually interesting here, the report implicates even the TPLF. It helps that the TPLF, whose forces also stand accused of committing war crimes, no longer seems especially bothered. So that the TPLF doesn't seem to be bothered about what might be happening in Western Tigray. I can't disagree. The TPLF doesn't seem to be especially bothered about that, and they say that, you know, the effect is that perpetrators are going to get away with murder. Amharas and Eritreans are going to get away with murder in Western Tigray. They have done the killing. They are now doing the evidence tampering, evidence destruction by burning burial grounds, and by the also I think some of you remember a report. I forgot. Maybe I will have to Aksum. Wasn't Gondar University engaged in exhumation of bodies? oops, Gondar University in Western Tigray of bodies. Yes. So Gondar University, of course, it denies aiding grave destruction in Western Tigray, but we know from I don't remember who the reporting was done by. It could have been by Reuters, or it could have been by CNN, but I don't quite remember. But we know it was a very, very meticulous and detailed reporting about how actually Gondar University was engaged in an exhumation of bodies from Western Tigray and disposing them off in some remote places. So this is a story that we are familiar with. This is something that we know has been happening for a long time. I think the only addition from the Economist reporting is that it is still happening. It is still happening, and I just thought I would share the story with you, because I think it's very important that at the very least we know what is happening, and at the very least we spread reportings to as many people as possible. I think the Economist and Reuters have been doing a really, really good job in shedding light into an otherwise darkened place, and one way that we could play a positive role is by making sure that the story is read by as many people as possible, that as many people as possible know what the Amhara and Eritrean forces have been doing in Western Tigray. And thank you for listening to me. If you can, make sure that you share the story on your social media feeds, and that from me. Until next time, bye bye.